Hello everybody, my name is Spooky, and today I'm going to be talking to you about my 5 go-to Mei builds that I use in Stadium. Now this is going to include a bunch of different variations of different builds that I use, and how I'm going to use them. I'm going to go over how I kind of build through these builds real briefly for you throughout my Stadium matches, and kind of talk about like the different items and how they work with each other. Now, these builds are going to be available for you at any time. If you go to my Twitch channel at twitch.tv/SpookyShow and type in the chat !Mei Builds, this is always going to have the most up-to-date build codes for you that I am currently using. So if you ever wondering, like maybe you see this video and then a month later you're like, okay, well, what updates have happened to these builds? What's most efficient right now? You don't have to look through my entire YouTube to find out where all the builds are. You can just go to my Twitch channel and type in !Mei Builds, and that's going to give you the most up-to-date codes there in the Twitch chat. So if you ever need to come by, check that out. You don't even need to say hi if you don't want to. I would love for you to say hi while you're there, but if you don't, just feel free to go and type !Mei Builds, grab your codes, get on out of there, and enjoy what we've created for the most part. So these are our current up-to-date builds. I want to talk about them though, because these builds I kind of rotate through a little bit. Some I use more than others, but they're all really important for different scenarios. So I want to talk to you about these, how to use them, when to use them. So when you're going into Stadium, you're playing Mei, you know when to use these builds. You can have them ready to go in your build codes by importing them. You're going to see all the build codes today, obviously in the top right here, right above me. You can see the share codes for each one. They'll also be in the description as well if you need to go back to it really quickly to see where those build codes are. So anyways, let's start with the first one here. Now this is the one I'm using the most often right now for this moment. For everything that Mei has, this is what I've found, at least for the rank that I'm playing at and my current playstyle. This has been the most widely common one that I've used. Almost always gets pretty good value. And there's only a few instances where I wouldn't run this for different reasons, and I'll talk to you about those. So starting off with number 1, this is the poke build. Now this build is centered completely around like keeping distance away from just about everybody. You rarely want to be close to the enemies until maybe later on, round 6 and 7. This build kind of goes into more of a close quarter kind of build, but the bread and butter of this is the first 5 rounds. The reason we call this the poke build is because it is just really good at being effective at distance, which Mei is really good at. Mei doesn't have any fall off damage for her secondary shot, and she has great usage with her iceberg wall to get damage from distance, so that you can get a lot of value while also playing extremely safe with this build. And I found this one has had the highest amount of credits, highest amount of survivability, highest amount of value for my team, and the highest win rate at the current moment. So this one I definitely recommend first. So let's start off with the first power here. We got iceberg, which is spawns the mini blizzard. I'm gonna go over these powers once, and then I'll probably just briefly go over. I'm assuming most of you guys know what these powers do, so I'm just gonna tell you how they interact. So iceberg round 1, you're gonna be going into compensator, weapon grease, and ammo reserves. We don't need any survivability because remember, we're planning on playing far away this entire time. So if you're finding that you're not able to play far away, or if you're getting pressured more, stand further back essentially. So it's no matter what, like that's your priority, is just keep going back. If someone wants to dive you, stand even further back than that. You know, you really want to make it hard for them to dive you while also getting pressure. Remember, you can shoot from, as long as you have a sight line, you are getting the maximum value with that right click as long as you're hitting them. There is no drop off for Mei's right click, which is what makes her one of the more powerful snipers in this game for Stadium right now, since we don't have like Widowmaker or Hanzo in the game. So she's really effective at doing kind of like a snipey pokey kind of playstyle. So after that, we're gonna be upping our attack speed. Attack speed is gonna make it much easier to just feel consistent damage and really lay consistent damage on the enemy. So we like to go into attack speed. Now, obviously, you can do weapon power as well, but I found that attack speed is probably the more cost effective, as well as the more just effective in general. It feels much more value in pressure, constant pressure that you're able to apply. So I like to grab aftermarket firing pin. The 5% move speed is great just to give us a little bit more options to rotate. It's not much, but it feels good. That extra 5% is really nice. Wrist straps is a great, you're gonna find that in the ability tab. This is a great value right now. They actually buffed this and gave it 10 health on top of that. So wrist straps at 4K, really good to pick up right now. Shield buster, obviously this is great only if you're playing against anything with shields or armor. That's going to include Zarya, that's going to include Ryan, that's going to include Sigma, Winston. I'm going to make it real simple. Anybody but Junker Queen. Junker Queen is the only tank that doesn't have any form of shields or any form of armor in Stadium right now. So as long as they're not running Junker Queen, grab Shield Buster. You're going to get a lot of value, especially if you're planning on shooting the tank a lot, which for the most part is going to be your most common target with Mei, especially when you're doing the poke, because they're always usually up front. Stockpile also got a little bit of a buff, so I like to have that in there. Again, having a larger clip for Mei, I think is really important. It feels really good to have that extra ammo and able to get sustained pressure. So I definitely recommend upgrading ammo reserves to stockpile if you have the money. I wouldn't get both of these. I don't think you need that much ammo, but you know, you do you. And then Talon Mod, obviously, if you have the money to get it, Talon Mod at 6k is like a great item to get before you start upgrading into your purples. This is like the final blue item. Like it's probably the least credit effective blue item, but it's also the most like effective mini purple item is how I like to think about it, because Talon Mod is 15% weapon power, and then you can get Codebreaker, which is also just 15% weapon power at 9k, but with the 50% ignorance of the armor reduction. So like this one's actually Talon Mod I like to grab if I have extra credits, and right before I start upgrading into the purples, I like to make sure I get Talon Mod, because it's my like last blue value item that I can get before I have to start buying purples, and just like kind of smooth out the whole value process along the way. So don't be afraid, guys. This one's really easy to follow left to right as you do it. Upgrade, just make sure you get all these. Now I do recommend getting upgrade all of your slots to blues before you grab Icy Veins. You should want to make sure you're maximizing your weapon, because most of the value you're getting is from poking with your secondary. So make sure you upgrade all of these to blues. Make sure you have your 5 blues, and then you can grab Icy Veins. Now Icy Veins is going to give you value on your iceberg, more damage. It's going to double the amount of damage, and at this point you'll probably have Snowball Flight as well to give you options if you get dove to use your pillar to get up, and then it'll do a lot of damage to the people that are around you as well. This just gives you a lot of options. You do not need to feel like you have to constantly get value using Snowball Flight, but I do recommend constantly using your wall to throw at like maybe like max distance, just to get like some really solid damage. Find some good wall locations to really disrupt the enemy, get some good damage, slow them down. It's gonna help. It's gonna pad your damage quite a bit using Iceberg. Definitely recommend it. Do not sleep on Iceberg in this poke build. It is extremely necessary to combo it with the weapon power. As you can see, it's like 90% weapon speed, weapon power, and then 1 item on Icy Veins. And like to be real, you really could go the whole game with just Icy Veins and then dumping everything into weapon damage. That is completely viable. What I have found for my playstyle that I really enjoy is kind of doing a little bit of a split as we go into that. After this, I like to grab 3-tap Tommy Gun. So this is going to get you next 3 instances of your weapon damage. They're going to do 3% of the target's life additionally on top of the damage that you do. This is really, really good against tanks, right? Because they have a large health pool. And I found it just stacks up really well. Like this 3-tap Tommy is great when you're using a lot of items and you have a lot of options to do damage to proc these. Now, this does proc really easily if you use primary on a target. So if someone's close, you can just primary them. It's going to trigger all 3 of those very quickly and do a lot of damage. But do not feel like you need to do that really quickly. It's really just, you're naturally going to be using your wall, you're naturally going to be using your pillar, and you're naturally going to be using your ice block. And all of these are going to get trigger instances where you can do 3 instances on your next weapon damage. Now, remember, this only triggers if you do damage. If you miss a shot, it will not count. And that is good, right? Because that means that you basically have 3 instances. If you miss a shot, miss a shot, miss a shot, and then you hit one, now you've got 2 more instances after that. And it basically is guaranteed, as long as you hit those shots before you use your next ability, that you get all 3. With that being said, just naturally do it. Like, you really don't have to think too much about this. Just grab 3-tap Tommy and just play like you normally would in your poke style, and you'll be looking pretty good. After that, Sturdy Snow Fort. This is more of a personal preference of mine. My walls is kind of how I place walls and how I get value with walls. Me personally is one of my strengths. So I like to play into that strength by getting a little bit more power on my wall. Sturdy Snow Fort obviously is going to give you an additional 40% when you're using your wall, 45% when you're using your wall and your pillar at the same time, but just that 40% for 10k. I'm mostly just trying to get value with my wall, so this is like a really good value item just to like up the damage on my wall ability power. So I just grabbed that just because I know I'm going to be using walls. Wall is very important to me as a player. So I grabbed that. Now you don't have to grab that. You can invest more in weapon power. You can grab Code Breaker if you want. If you feel like you're more of like a weapon focused player, then feel free to do that. And then I do recommend grabbing Phantasmic Flux, obviously a very popular item in a lot of my builds. This one in particular, Phantasmic Flux is the perfect item to grab when you have a split build between weapon power and ability power. And there is no better split build that I'm going to show you today than the poke build. This is exactly what I mean by a split build. Weapon and ability, it's both, and they work in tandem and they work great together. So Phantasmic Flux is probably a must. If you don't grab it, after this, you can grab it before Sturdy Snow Fort, whatever works for you, you do you. But this is probably this is going to be your bread and butter build right now until we see any massive changes in Stadium, especially for May. This is your poke build. I know I wanted to take a little bit of time, a little bit of extra time to talk about this one because you're going to be using this one probably at least 75% of the time. If you are playing at least like around like the elo I'm playing or like your play style, like you're going to find this extremely effective. So make sure you grab this one 100%. All right, going on to number 2. This is our flank build. This one is still an experimentation, and I don't recommend using this unless you feel comfortable playing Mei in an unorthodox kind of manner. This one is particularly effective if you feel like you are getting like you're playing against some dive heroes or like flyers or like anything where essentially you feel like your team is too grouped up and you're getting a lot of spam damage. Spam particularly, this is really effective against. And what I like to talk about it is I like to open up the fight a little bit so the spam is not as efficient. So if I'm playing against like Junkrat, Freya, Pharah, any kind of spam, or even like sometimes Diva, this is another like global build. I've not posted a video about this, but I do use it from time to time, and it is effective. This is a very global build that you can use to just put pressure on the backline and really split up the enemy's attention. But you do have to be comfortable with playing on flanks, being comfortable and confident in your play style, and really not being afraid to live in the enemy's backline while also living, right? It's really about putting pressure on the backline and living at the same time. So if you don't feel comfortable doing that, and you just want to play Mei in a normal way, feel free to completely skip this build. But if you do not mind being a little goofy, being a little silly goofy and getting in the back line, this is a really good build. This is the flank version 1. First time I've talked about this one. It starts off with Coulter. This is purely for survivability. We do not use this to do damage. This is purely to rotate when we get pressured out so we can easily get behind corners and stuff like that. We've got Cry Clone. Oh, sorry, I didn't even talk about the poke one. Whatever, you guys get it. You guys get it. AP after that, yada yada yada. All right, so flank, Coulter, Cry Clone, Frost Nova, and Iceberg. This is basically just investing in your Coulter, your ball. You're not really going to use this as damage until maybe like basically when you can pick up Icy Veins is when you're going to use it a little bit more aggressively. But again, still primarily going to be used just for survival. Now, this build is based around your speed and your ability to take off angles very quickly. Running Shoes is the cornerstone of this build because it allows you at the beginning of the game to take really aggressive angles that are going to surprise the enemy. So you're going to be looking for routes to get around the enemy so you don't take that first fight. And when the fight happens, you're actually going to be in their backline at a reasonable distance away so they can't easily pressure you out, to constantly put pressure on them. Running Shoes, fantastic. This got buffed and it is even better than it was before because I used it before the buff too. Now you get 10 health and you get 30% move speed, which used to be 20%, for 10 seconds while you're out of combat and at the beginning of the round. So this is great for regrouping with your team as well as taking those early off angles. Running Shoes is a fantastic item right now. I use it in a lot of builds actually, even outside of this, just because I like being able to get back to spawn very quickly. Heartbeat Sensor is literally just for your 5% move speed. Make sure you grab that. Aftermarket firing pin, again, for your 5% move speed. Iron Eyes, again, for your 5% move speed. This actually got buffed and did not have move speed before, and now it does. This is now in the build. We do have wrist straps in here just to give you a little bit of health and some more attack speed. So at this point, you're rocking a solid 20% attack speed, and you should be doing, like base, you should be having, what, 20% move, or sorry, 15% move speed base, and then obviously with your spawn, an extra 30% as you're coming out of spawn. Once you have all these, you can grab snow boots as quickly as you're comfortable. This will get you your 15% attack speed, but also your 35% movement speed while you're shooting the ground with your primary, so you can actually move and move very quickly. So like at the beginning of the matches, you can get your 30% move speed plus your additional 35% move speed from your snow boots, which makes this extremely easy to take very quick angles and to get back from spawn extremely quickly. Like, you're going quick. But again, we're not planning on dying too much. This is mainly about just taking these off angles and pressuring the backline. Booster jets, obviously 20% attack speed. You get an additional 10% move speed when you use an ability. This is, you can really proc while you're using your coulter. And at this point, you're probably going to start seeing it a little bit more aggressive, because using this with your coulter does move, increases your movement speed too while you're using coulter. But you can also use your wall if you need to proc it quickly to get back. Phantasmic Flux, obviously to get a little bit of lifesteal while you're poking. This is great because you will be getting that over health that you need. Now you can switch this out for maybe something like Sonic Recharger if you're feeling like it, but I do like the weapon power that I get from Phantasmic Flux, so I do grab that. Icy Veins, to get your boulder damage. Again, this is where you're probably going to be using boulder a little bit more aggressively. Still starting out with the poke, but the moment that somebody pressures you, like peels back to pressure you, then you can roll into them and use that damage, or try to push them away from their team to isolate them as you go for that kill. 3-tap Tommy, again, is really good. It's really easy to proc that. Same thing kind of what we talked about in build. Same thing that you use that. You're just doing it from the back line instead of the front line. And then obviously, whenever you have enough money, make sure to get Eye of the Spider. Fantastic for finishing up a lot of that damage. This is really going to up the amount of kill potential that you have. So again, flank is one where I would kind of, if I can paint the picture for you, it's really like imagine round starts, gates open, we're playing Hanaoka, right? Flashpoint. Or Clash, sorry, is what it's called. So we go out with those running shoes. We have our 35% extra 35% movement speed. We're zooming, but we're not going straight to the point. We're taking the off angles, and I usually like to go the more enclosed route, but you can take either one. I'm going around the angles, so by the time it kind of works out perfectly is they're pushing into the point, I am on their flank, and I'm actually going to play back behind their choke that they're pushing through, and I'm going to poke their back line just to really split their attention. Now, if I get a pick, great, but the real thing is that I'm turning the support's attention to me while their tank is still pushing up and my team is shooting their tank. And if I can get their supports to not heal their tank is going to die. So that is what I mean is by it's all about poking the backline and surviving, because if you die during this process, it's a 1-for-1 trade, and honestly, it's just not worth it for all that effort. So go for that, pressure him out, split the attention, kill the tank. Now this won't work 100% of the time. If you notice that it's not working, you're not getting the value you need, don't be afraid to pivot this. You have your AP in here. You can always go back to your AP build if you feel like the flank is not working. But I do run this, and I find it quite effective, especially against flyers. People that it's a very spread out comp. I like to invest a little bit in splitting them up a little bit. All right, S.O.P. This is our S.O.P build. This is our survival build. S.O.P stands for stand on point, survive on point, whatever you want to call. This is purely for living, and really the rule of thumb is just play near the objective. You don't have to take it literally. Don't just stand on the point, play your corners, but really just play the objective, play close. This is particularly effective against Diva or any kind of comp that you feel like you're just not able to get much damage against, so you're going to go purely into survival. For example, I find this really effective against Zarya a lot of the times, more specifically when Zarya, it's like Zarya in a bunch of mobile things. Like it's like Zarya, Mercy, Juno, Freya, Junkrat, or something like that. I'm going to go the S.O.P build because I know that I'm not really going to be able to get effective damage on that comp. Mei is not great against mobility. Mei is not great against high spam damage. So I'm going to go the S.O.P build. to maximize my value you can get for the team by just existing as another tank, essentially, is what we're doing. So we're grabbing Frost Armor out the gate. This is going to build us up our armor every round as long as we're using our primary. And I will say with the S.O.P build, you definitely basically just want a primary. You can secondary if you want, but like you're going to get a lot more value just from farming up your lifesteal. And it's really consistent if you can just use primary where you can. So Frost Armor, that's going to get us our armor up until 100 using our primary. We have our field rations. It gives us constant life. This is early game. I would not have this anymore after round 3, or actually starting round 3. I wouldn't grab this. Charge plating you can take as long as you want. Now Vishkar condenser and reinforced titanium actually got buffs, and I really do like how these work now because you get your additional shields, and they're extremely cheap now. They're only $37.50, and you also have your 15% reduced ability damage. Usually ability damage, I will say, is usually the one that's taking out Mei, because you will have armor, right? You have armor to work with your weapon, their weapon damage reduction, but reinforced titanium is going to fill in that gap by doing ability reduction. So Crusader Hydrox as well to increase the amount of reduced weapon damage, and you get 5% attack speed now too, which is awesome. That also got a buff. So these survival items got really good buffs. Now Bloodbound is one that I've kind of been using lately, and I would only grab this if you feel like you're dying to the same person over and over again, or there's like one person in particular that's specifically focusing you. Like I'll grab this if I'm like basically just distracting a Zarya, and Zarya is just shooting me the entire time. I might grab Bloodbound because this is great, because I'm going to get an additional 10% reduction from Zarya specifically if she's the one that killed me. And I also get more damage to them. So if you find that, that's great. If you feel like there's not really anybody in particular that's focusing you, you don't have to grab Bloodbound. You can grab something else. Maesicle, if you want just to survive a little bit more. You might need this the more your health scales, because you don't have ability power to heal you up quickly with your ice block. So you might need a little bit more time if you're not doing any AP inside of this, because you will have a lot more HP with this build. So I do recommend Maesicle just to make sure you're like, if you're like 10 HP and you use your ice block, that it's going to heal you all the way up to full HP again. Because if you don't have Maesicle, you're probably only going to heal like 75% of your health in your block. So, but again, this is completely optional if you want to go a different route. Talon mod is just to fill that in a little bit with some weapon power. You do want to make sure you're scaling weapon power at this point, just so at least you can do damage, and it's much easier to farm your frost armor early. And then at this point, ice sheet. Now again, you don't have any ability power, so if you want your wall to exist, you're gonna need to grab ice sheet. And the reason that's important is because on round 3 we grab Iceberg, and round 5 we grab Bliznado, and Bliznado is going to be one of your, like, basically your biggest source of self heal in this build, which does 15% of heals 50% of your life while you're in your mini Blizz and while you're in your regular Blizzard ultimate. So like basically your Iceberg is just like your, like, think of it as like a little stim pack. You're gonna want to make sure that that stays up, and especially if you're in higher ranks, people know to shoot that center pillar to cancel your mini Blizz. So you want to grab your ice sheet, or else your wall is gonna be paper thin without any ability power. So you definitely want to grab this. Now after this is basically just scaling up your HP and your self heal. Martian Bender is a good choice. 3% is good just to fill in the gaps for when you can't use your wall, but obviously the 10% cooldown reduction is going to help with maintaining your ice block and your ice sheet. And the reason we like this 10% cooldown is because when your ice sheet is up and you have 100% increased health and 1 extra second on the duration, and your Maesicle is also increased by 25% duration, basically once there's like a little gap in between the timing when you can't use your ice block and you can't use your wall, if you're constantly using them, this Martian Bender just narrows that gap perfectly. So you basically can use your wall, you can self heal on it, and then when your wall's down, you can always use cryo, and then when your cryo's done, you're always gonna have your wall up again. So it's basically just great for survival. Rustung is going to scale up our, basically just our max HP and our reduction. This is great for reduction below 30%, an additional 10%. But this is really about scaling up our HP so our Bliznado can heal more and get us more ult charge, which is really good. And then obviously Eye of the Spider, once you have enough credits, if you do have enough credits to scale up your weapon damage, replace Talon mod with Eye of the Spider, and then you're good to go with damage. But again, mostly use your primary. So that's the S.O.P build. Again, definitely recommend it. This is one I use basically just when I can see the enemy comp and I'm like, I don't know how I'm gonna get value against this. AP is not going to work against them. Poke isn't going to work against him. I can try to snipe, but like Mei's not the best sniper. She's a projectile hero. Like sometimes you can hit shots, but it's just not consistent enough, especially against higher elo players that know how to position, that know how to move and strafe. It's just not going to be easy. So I'd much rather just play it safe and just do a S.O.P build. This is when I just kind of run this out the gate. I'm like, dude, this is just not going to be fun. This is the man, that enemy team does not look fun. I'm going to play S.O.P. That's going to give you your best chance. So Ice Palace, kind of close to Poke, but Ice Palace is much more focused upon playing into your AP earlier on. And it's also about a specific play style of playing on top of your walls with BlizzNATO. So we talked about how BlizzNATO worked before. Now, the nice thing is, as this scales up, we're just going to talk about the powers, and then I'll briefly go over these items. The power Iceberg and Snowball Flight, once you have Iceberg, Snowball Flight also gets your mini Blizz. I do want to talk about this because if you are within your mini Blizz, you are getting the 15% healing with BlizzNATO on round 5. This is when you're going to want to play either in your Blizz or on top of your wall. And I need to be very clear. If you're standing on top of your wall, you will get the self-healing from BlizzNATO. If you're standing on top of your pillar, you will not get your healing from BlizzNATO. You have to be below the top, like on the ground in the mini Blizz. Now it'll also work with Iceberg, obviously on the ground. But if you want, I do recommend what I like to do when I'm doing this build. So I get to round 5. I've got, I've got my my BlizzNATO going. I've got some weapon damage. I got Icy Veins for the power. I've got Lifesteal to also supplement my self-healing. Which we love stacking up with Phantasmic Flux to easily get that overhealth. And then obviously by this point, probably Sturdy Snowfort as well, just to give our wall a little bit more beef so it doesn't go down immediately. At this point, this is where I'm kind of talking about, I'll probably wall. This is really good for when people are up in your face a lot. So you're playing against like Reinhardt, you're playing against Reaper, or you're playing against like this could even work against like, it's really good against Junker Queen. So like you're running against that and you are just seeing that they're in your face all the time. These are really close encounters. Ice Palace is a fantastic build to go, extremely effective at countering this. So what you do is basically essentially you're just always playing on top of a wall or a pillar. So let's say, for example, you're full HP and you use your wall and people are shooting you and you're on top of your wall, which means they have to look up, which is it doesn't seem super like effective, but I'm telling you, man, when players have to look up, they become way less effective. Also, it's much harder to hit headshots when somebody's above you. That's why high ground is really effective, much easier to hit headshots from down or from top to below. So you play on top of the wall, you become more survivable, you have more self-heal in your BlizzNATO as you're playing on top of that wall, and then by the time your wall breaks, you use your pillar to just elevate yourself again, and then you play on top of there for as long as you can. You're going to take much less damage. Now again, you won't self-heal, but you'll probably be getting lifesteal from people that are playing close to it because you're getting damage and extra damage from Icy Veins, so you're really survival. And then by the time that breaks, you're either going to have your Cryclone available or your block, and then you can just rinse and repeat the process with another wall when you get out, and then whatever. Now you will find with if you feel like you want to do like make it to where you can just always play on top of a wall, you can grab like Ice Sheet instead of Sturdy Snowfort to extend the time for your ice wall, and you can also get Cyber Venom to reduce your cooldown reduction. I'm telling you, these two, this and Ice Sheet, are great at just reducing that time, and then you can just permanently play on top of your walls. And I'm telling you, man, it is so effective at increasing your survival and getting a ton of damage because people are trying to kill you, and so they got to play close to the wall and stuff like that. Very, very good. I grabbed this in very brawly type comps, especially with like Lucio with like a lot of speed and stuff like that, or Juno. So basically that, and then you scale up Super Flexor. Basically that just works. Use your primary. This is you get basically weapon damage stacks that increase your ability power up to 25%. If you use your primary, it just gets all 5 instantly like that. So this is really good if you're playing close. That's why I grabbed this Super Flexor for close comps, is because it's really easy to proc your 25% ability power. You get 10% weapon power and 25 health. Super cheap, great value item to grab. Cyber Venom, obviously, OP item. If you have a lot of mini Blizz instances, really good. And then obviously Champion's Kit if you can afford it, just to bolster that up a little bit. All right. On to our last one, and I will say, if you guys are watching this right now, make sure to like the video if you want to see more stuff like this. Again, you can go to my Twitch channel at any point and type in !Mei Builds and you'll get all the up-to-date builds. So if you ever need to come back and check what's new, feel free to do that. All right, on our final build, this is Firehose. This is one of our oldest builds, but is still extremely effective, especially if you find that I'm gonna be real. This is really effective at basically just Junker Queen when she doesn't have speed. So if it's like Junker Queen and she doesn't have a Juno or a Lucio, I'm going Firehose. Now, with that being said, this build can really work in any scenario. It's just like good, but it's not great in every scenario. So if you just want to do like a full-on weapon power primary, kind of turn your brain off and just shoot the tank, this really does work. You're not going to be throwing by playing this into any comp, really. Zarya maybe, but it depends on if you can kill her quickly. But it's extremely effective at pressuring Junker Queen when she doesn't have additional speed on top of that. So if you're looking at the enemy comp, you see they have a Junker Queen, and you see they're not running a Lucio, and you see they're not running a Juno, I would probably say Firehose is a really, really, really good option to just grab it and just pressure the Junker Queen the entire time. Keep her slowed down, keep her distanced away from your team. It's going to be great she's going to be super annoyed at you. She's probably going to grab the jumping axe power, but again, this is going to make it to where she has to invest to at least get value, which for you is great. You know, making a tank really have to do that is in the net value of Overwatch is really good. So let's talk about this real quick. Extended Thermics out the gate. I like grabbing this. You can grab Frost Armor first if you want. That's a preference. I like Extended Thermics because I like to make sure early on in the game I'm getting credits to build up into this build. And Extended Thermics is really going to increase the amount of damage we do by hitting people with our cleave. The collateral that we get when we shoot, because it goes so far, it goes so much farther, and you're going to hit a lot of people behind the Junker Queen, so you're going to be getting double, triple the amount of damage a lot of times that you would if you didn't have Extended Thermics. You'd only be getting that one instance by slowing her down, and it allows you to pressure her from way farther away safely if you'd like to, so it just increases your survivability as too. The rest of this, man, is just weapon power and a little bit of lifesteal. Grab Plasma Converter and then start scaling into weapon and ammo, and basically I'm telling you, all you have to do is consistently and always be shooting the Junker Queen or whatever tank you're shooting at to feed into that lifesteal and to do the damage, so you're healing yourself but also doing a lot of damage. Just make sure you at least have Plasma Converter so you can get that 10% weapon lifesteal. Frost Armor by round 3 is just going to up your survivability by giving you that armor. That's going to farm up real quick every single round because you're dumping into weapon. Focus Flurries I do think is important because it is a massive increase in your clip. Now this does increase your reload time, but that plus the attack speed I think is such a good value item if you're using your primary. So I do recommend grabbing that for your ammo. If you don't feel comfortable having a longer reload time, you can always just grab Commander's Clip if you'd like. And then Volskaya Ordnance. Now this is, I wouldn't grab this unless you're playing maybe against Orisa. Junker Queen doesn't really have a large health pool, so if you're playing against Orisa, grab this 100%. Or another tank with a large health pool. If you're playing against Junker Queen or like Zarya, would not grab this. I do not think they have a large enough health pool to make it worth it. To get the full max 25% damage that you get from Volskaya Ordnance. So I would not grab that. Booster Jets, you can grab. This is just purely for attack speed. Iron Spider for damage, Closer for damage, and Phantasmic Flux for survivability. This is more of like a legitimate flex route. You can grab these whenever you want in whatever order. So if you feel you need more survival, grab Phantasmic. If you feel like you want to do more damage, grab Iron Spider, whatever. So very straightforward build. Iceberg is just the icing on top. Get it? To get some more damage. Wall behind the JQ and then just focus her down with a bunch of damage and then you're pretty much good. Very easy build. I like to have this in here. I don't run it often. Maybe one in like 20 games I'll run Firehose. But it's still, I like to have it in here as well. All right, so that is the 5 most popular builds that I use. These are really all I have. Now ignore these are all just like little like supplemental things to make it easy to like find items that I need. But this really is like all you're gonna need for now. Until we have any massive changes to Mei, these are basically gonna be like the basically the builds that you'll use. They're just going to get updated from now. So we'll see if any other builds come out of this. This really is going to cover all your bases. So like I said, poke is great. Basically in all scenarios. You can run this whenever. I'm not even kidding. You can run this at any time against any comp. Now I say that and I obviously correct myself, except for S.O.P. So if like you're playing poke and like poke is not going to work great against like Zarya, Junkrat, Freya, Pharah, Juno, Mercy. It's not going to be nearly as effective. So that's where S.O.P kind of comes in. So you'll really see me run these two builds the most. Poke, and then if I can't run poke, I'm running S.O.P. So again, like 80% of the time, 20% of the time on S.O.P. Flank I'll run, especially if I just want to have a little bit of fun. But again, it's an alternative to S.O.P. while you can still kind of do damage if you feel comfortable with that. So this is kind of an alternative to S.O.P. During, you know, comps that are just not fun to play into. Ice Palace is great for brawl type comps, things that are going to be playing very close to you. Like a lot of people are playing close and up on the ground, especially like, yeah, on the ground in your face. Ice Palace is great at, and then Firehose obviously. It's just a nice global one, real easy, exceptionally good at pressuring Junker Queen. So that's all the builds, guys. If you do have any questions, feel free to comment them below. I know this is a pretty long-winded explanation of everything, but I do want to make sure that you guys have all these available to you. You can find all the build codes in the description or on my Twitch channel. If you could go follow the Twitch channel, would love that, would appreciate it. But that's going to be it for today, guys. So thanks for watching. We're going to be live playing Mei today when this drops, and in the future as well. So you can stop on by whenever to come say what's up. So that's it. My name's Spooki. Have a fantastic day, everybody, and I hope to see you on the next Stadium video. All right, peace.